Hello everyone and welcome to the Society of Editors Conference 2020. My name is Sarah Brown and I head up news partnerships for Facebook in Northern Europe. Sadly, I won't be seeing you in person this year because of the extraordinary circumstances over the past few months, but it's been incredibly inspiring to see the amazing work that publishers all across the UK have been doing to ensure that despite everything going on, you've been connecting people to the stories that matter most to them. This has been incredibly inspiring to see, and Facebook hopes to continue working with all of you in the future to make sure those stories are being connected with the people who need them most. Thank you so much again for all your fantastic work and looking forward to all the sessions today.
Hello everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Nigel Railton and I'm the CEO of Kamal Ahmed UK and have been since 2017. In the current challenging circumstances, I'm so glad that Society of Editors annual conference is able to go ahead, albeit I suppose in a very different and innovative way. We're now in our 26th year of operating the National Lottery, and Camelot has supported Society of Editors for 19 of those 26 years. Thanks to your and your journalists' invaluable support over that time, a number of things have been able to happen. National Lottery winners have been able to share their good news. Missing ticket holders have been united with their winnings, and a huge range of good cause and charity projects have been able to highlight the difference that they make thanks to vital National Lottery funding. And the 30 million that's raised each and every week by National Lottery players has never been more crucial than it is right now. Earlier in the year, the National Lottery distributors announced that 600 million in funding was going towards COVID relief. Now that's the biggest financial contribution outside of central government. And we're continuing to work with them and others to do as much as we possibly can on this long road to recovery. We remain fully committed to keeping the National Lottery up and running, and in particular supporting our 44,000 retail partners who have been vital to the National Lottery's success since 1994. And I must say they've done an amazing job, I'm sure you'll agree, through this lockdown period and indeed through the whole COVID experience. We of course have a shared interest in that regard as well, as many of our retailers and newsagents so sell both our products and yours. I know that things are uncertain right now, and for many of us, and I know it's something that's been said over and over, but we at Camelot are fully committed to supporting the Society of Editors and the UK media more generally, and we really are all in this together. If there's anything I or my team can do, or you've had any feedback on how we could work better together, then please do not hesitate to get in touch with me. Anyway, thank you for allowing me to say a few words, and I'll let you get on with your session now. Thank you for all that you're doing, and I hope that you and your family stay safe and well, and hopefully in the not too distant future I'll be able to see you again in person. Until that time, thank you very much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here for the first of our keynote discussions as part of the Society of Editors Virtual Conference 2020. As many of you will know, the Society of Editors stages an annual conference around about this time in the late autumn. It's usually everyone gathers. We hope to discuss in person, to discuss the important issues facing the media industry of the day. For obvious reasons, we won't be doing that this year, so we decided we held it virtually. But we didn't want to subject any of you to a full day's worth of staring at the screen, so we have chosen to break up panels and debates and discussions across 4 weeks, and we hope that you will be able to join us on as many of those as possible. And for the first keynote discussion, I'm delighted to have with me here Kamal Ahmed, who is Editorial Director for BBC News. Thank you so much for joining us, Kamal. BBC, even before we went into the crisis, was making a lot of news itself, a lot of discussion about the future of the BBC. And I just wanted to kick off, if I could ask you to just set the scene on where you think BBC News is at the moment and the challenges that you're facing.
Thanks very much, Ian, and thanks everybody for dialing into this. The Society of Editors has such an important role, and I think what we've really discovered this year, if we go back to the events of March and February and the appearance in the UK of COVID as a thing that was going to affect all of our lives has not just meant something really, really big and fundamental for BBC News, as you say, Ian, but actually something fundamental for journalists and journalism. And I think I've had a long career in this industry. I've worked in the print industry for many, many years, Scotland Sunday, The Guardian, The Observer, the Daily and Sunday Telegraph. And moving into the BBC, I've always been very clear that we are all journalists. And I think this year has really proved, from the national papers, from the BBC, from ITV, from Sky, Channel 4, Channel 5, the regional newspapers, the nations, the national newspapers in the nations, just how important journalism is as a trade and a profession. And the work that we have all done under such great pressure, I think, is really remarkable. I was thinking back, Ian, we will all have covered in our lives big news events, really important issues. I was thinking back to when I was on Scotland Sunday in the 1990s and the Dunblane massacre, the horrors of that event. And then you sort of think through to the death of Diana, Princess of Wales, 9/11, the Iraq War, the London bombing, 7/7, the financial crisis, the things that we have really had to think about. How do we communicate these amazing, distressing events to audiences? But this is really different because in a way that those events weren't, COVID has not only been one of the most, if not the most important story I've ever been involved in, but it has affected us all personally as well. We are literally living the story, living in it as human beings. And it's really made a connection, I think, between journalism and human life, because we all have people who have been affected. We've been worried ourselves for our loved ones and our families. And we have both been reporting a story and living it. And I think that really has raised new challenges for us as an industry, which I think we have really risen to. But it has also meant that we have to think more closely about what do audiences need from us as journalists in this period. And our approach really has been that in this period, BBC News has a hugely important role in not just reporting the news and what is happening, but also explaining it and being able to be a place where people can come for trusted, impartial news and information about what is happening. And what we found has been really interesting. Of course, we've had the amazing big moments, the live moments, the terrible stories of death that so many people have suffered, not just here, but around the world. And of course, BBC News is global as much as it is a UK business. That explanation and that information is a really important part of our job. We have a page which is updated all day, every day, which is the number of coronavirus cases in your area. You just click on it, you put in your postcode, and you find out what are the health effects in the area you live at the moment from COVID. It is the most popular page, it's a set of pages, set of information, BBC News has ever produced in its history. 200 million plus users. We've also got a lookup page for restrictions in your area. That is also ratcheting up, handy. Did it a bit before the government, they caught up. That is also being read, looked at, used by many, many millions of people. So I think for the BBC, Lots of people have come back to BBC News through COVID, which we're delighted at. Lots of people have come back to us, regularly. We've had big audiences for the big bulletins, the big live moments, for online, for radio. And it has been an opportunity, we hope, to re-engage those audiences in what the BBC is for. But I think, Ian, it is in that ecology of all journalists. As I say, I'm not a BBC, I've not been to the BBC all my career, nowhere near. I've been to the BBC about 6 years now. And I'm very aware of how much great journalism is going on across the UK and across the world for this. I'll just leave you really with a final thought. We do great news and information and explanation for lots and lots of audiences, but Fran Unsworth, the director of news, my boss, she said in a speech in January 2020 that we know we didn't give enough value to all audiences, to audiences that maybe don't come to us often enough, and when they come to us, don't we recognize their lives in what they see through BBC News. And at the same time as promoting and doing all the great journalism we do at the moment, and I hope that anybody who's listening to this and any others will have seen on BBC News the fantastic work that Hugh Pym, Fergus Walsh, our politics team, all of our health team, our economics teams, our global teams from around the world have done. We also want to make sure we're thinking of different methods of talking to people. And I think that's around different mechanisms for telling news stories. It's about allowing the people in the story to tell their own story, something around this idea of self-authoring. So it's giving a bit of power up. It's being a bit more transparent. When I started in news in London, my first job was at The Guardian when Alan Rusbridger was the editor-in-chief. And I remember Alan was told a very good story about how online had changed the relationship, digital had changed the relationship between journalists and the readers, or our audience as we see them obviously at the BBC. And he said, when we started in our careers, and I'm old enough to remember a pre-internet era, possibly you are as well, Ian, yes, possibly you are as well, Ian, that we sat in our castle, and every day at about 6 o'clock, we sort of threw our day's work over the wall to the public who paid for it. And our actual interaction with our readers, our audiences, were relatively limited. That has completely broken down. That castle has gone. There is a new need for transparency with your audiences about what you do, about how you do it. And we need to think carefully about how we do that, how we think about that, how we create journalism, which is brilliant, authoritative, questioning, revealing great original news stories that matter for many, many people. And at the same time is just developing new ways of telling stories which help audiences really engage with what we do. So I think we have had a remarkable time through COVID, a very tough time. A lot of this job, Ian, is keeping the show on the road. I think when you work in broadcasting, and of course in print as well, a lot of this is engineering. It's keeping things plugged in and working and machinery going, and we rely on our operations teams are absolutely amazing in the COVID, restrictions they have had around the world and in the UK. Just keeping the show on the road has been a big part of our year. But we hope that our journalism, our explanation, what we hope is a calm authority has helped the public understand what is happening around them. Because journalism, I cannot, and this sounds such a cliche, Ian, but I cannot remember when journalism, reporting on what's happening, giving people public information, being trusted, authoritative, impartial, is more important for us, and also holding power duly to account where necessary, so that they know that we are there on behalf of the audience to scrutinize what they do and to explain to all of our audiences what is going on around them.
Thanks for setting the scene on that. Perhaps I can take you back. And there's several points there I'd like for us to explore further. But if I take you back to the coverage of COVID, and it struck me and following, and like you, I'm a news junkie. I'm presuming you're a news junkie and follow everything, of course, follow what the BBC have been doing. And I thought there's a tremendous challenge here for the BBC with its enormous reach, which I hope we can mention a little bit later on and explore. That with its enormous reach, with its role, and as you said, more and more people have come back to the BBC that may have drifted off to elsewhere because of trust in what the BBC is saying. That do you believe that the BBC has got it right and continues to get it right about this balance between reporting and, so I say, supporting what the government is saying and the one view, and at the same time there is some might say growing skeptical view that this is not the best way to do it, and that there are a lot of scientific voices out there that are in opposition. And I thought, how difficult is that for the BBC or any news organisation to actually, we don't want to undermine public confidence, but equally so, it's our duty as journalists to present the other side of the argument. How do you think the BBC is getting that right?
We talk about this a lot of the time, Ian. This is absolutely one of the fundamental questions. I tend not to think about, are we getting it right or wrong? Every day it is a discussion. And if I were to say we're getting it right, that sounds like, well, that's it, we can just move on in the same way. Every day we talk about this. What is the correct balance between, exactly as you say, Ian, holding power to account, ensuring that where mistakes are made, where there are other opinions, that we give due rein to those opinions. And I think that's where this idea of due impartiality comes in. Tim Davie, our new Director General, has made it really clear his first priority as Director General is impartiality, to show that the BBC in the UK and around the world is for all audiences. And we need to ensure that. And as you say, Ian, some people are now more critical of the government than in the March and the original lockdown and April. Some of that faith in what the government is doing has broken down. And we need to reflect that in how we cover where we are as a set of nations, but also where we are in comparison with around the world. But we also need to ensure that the government is able to put its case. And that's that really important balance that we use and talk through every day. And also don't forget, we have great reach. The vast majority of UK adults use the BBC every week and use BBC News every week, for which we're very grateful. So we have to reflect on that and just make sure that we are creating that correct balance between different things. We have different output that does different jobs for different audiences that want different things. So Newsnight has a different role in our portfolio from the 6 o'clock news. The Today programme has a different role from Newscast, our daily podcast on sounds. And so we hope that by different mechanisms and different ways of engaging with audiences, we can reach that balance. But you are absolutely right that it is one that we have to think about constantly.
You touched there on the new Director General, Tim Davie, and he was supposed to be very open about his aims, initial aims going forward. And he mentioned about the impartiality, the absolute importance. I don't think any of us in the industry would disagree with that, the importance of impartiality. What I wasn't clear about was whether or not Tim Davie was actually saying there is a problem with impartiality in the BBC. In fact, we are not impartial enough, or there's a problem of perception that we aren't impartial. And that there's a difference between the two. So can I put you on the spot and ask you the question that do you think that BBC News, plus its broad spectrum, as you just said there, for different audiences, has a problem or has had a problem with impartiality? Or is it a perception?
I don't know what the data is about to answer either of those, to say that whether they are true or not. We know that modern ideas around impartiality are very different from what they may have been 20, 30 years ago. Impartiality has moved away from the notion of simple balance, let's say on left or right, or between supporting Brexit or not supporting Brexit. Impartiality is a very complicated issue. It's not just around which stories you do, it's how you do them. So I spoke a little bit earlier about allowing the audience to own more of the reporting in their own voice. We know from our audience research, which are now much more embedded in how we think about how we do news, that when you do that, people, many audiences, instinctively feel it is more impartial, i.e., if you just cover all issues through a lens of an argument, the public could perceive that as somehow being biased towards one side or another side. So clearly there have been arguments about the BBC and is it impartial? It's not quite how we look at it. Again, it's like the right and wrong answer. We never think we're right on this. It's a daily discussion. And when I was economics editor at the BBC and I went through the Brexit referendum, I went through the Scottish referendum as business editor, I knew I had to think every day about impartiality in everything I did. And everything from a tweet to my package on the 6 o'clock news to a two-way on the Today programme, I was always thinking, am I correctly reflecting on the evidence in front of me for all audiences? And that is a daily exercise. It's quite interesting. We brought in, as part of this transparency drive, we brought in pre-COVID, we had what we called an audience takeover day. And we brought on Brexit, because, you know, externally, we were attacked for some of our Brexit coverage. And we brought the audience in to sit through our editorial meetings, to see how we made decisions, the discussions we had as an organization, and then how did news sort of happen. And I was really struck by that group. I think it was about 10 people, some of whom were real Brexit supporters, were ready to come in and think, oh, you're pro this or you're pro that. And actually they left the building saying, wow, it's complicated. And wow, do you talk about it? And that is what we do every day. And what Tim is saying is that we need to have that process embedded and really obvious to audiences, that that is what we do every day. Now, BBC News and Current Affairs is one of the major touch points, of course, on this issue for audiences. And we have to take great care in what we do. What I would say, though, is that Ofcom have not found against us on impartiality, despite having many, many complaints against us. We worked incredibly hard through the election, for example. Golly, it seems so far away. December last year, we had a general election. We were under some pressure. People argued that this wasn't, impartial and that wasn't impartial. But we navigate very, very carefully through these issues with great discussion. We produce hundreds of hours of content every week, hundreds of hours. Of course, there will be people that think we misstep, but I think that the error rate, if there is one, is absolutely tiny given the number of hours we produce. I think it's something like 9 hours. Every hour we produce 9 hours of content, much of it live. So it's a constant debate. I'm sure we do make mistakes. We're all journalists. We're all doing this 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, much of it live. But the messages from Tim, and Fran has asked me to lead a lot of this work for BBC News and Current Affairs with Jamie Angus, the head of World Service and Global, just to have that moment of we embed this very clearly, as we do already, but just make that really clear to audiences that every day is the first thing we think about.
Do you think that one of the challenges problems that besets the BBC and perhaps doesn't beset other news organisations, both here and abroad, is that, and it occurs to me sometimes, it occurred to me a long time ago, is the BBC an investigative news and information broadcaster with an arts and entertainment arm, or is it an arts and entertainment broadcaster with an investigative news and information arm? And would it simply be better if there was, particularly in these days when trust and perceptions of bias, as you quite rightly pointed out, are changing in people's minds, if there was far more of a division? And I'm thinking about perhaps newsreaders, well-known newsreaders perhaps should not be also introducing popular light entertainment programs about art or about antiques. And, sort of, also I go so far as to say, blurring of the lines of some areas. You take the very popular One Show, it's a very good show, but it is, I'm wondering, are you an entertainment program? Are you a news and informative? Because you take up some serious topics and you go out on the streets and you ask people, and then you have a pop star in there and you're asking them, all about their latest song or something like that. I'm being very flippant about that, but this sort of blurs it. And are the arts and entertainment side, is that infecting the news side? And there should be much more of a divisional line between the two. Discuss.
Yes, that's a big question, Ian. I don't agree that the line is blurred. The skills of our main presenters, our fantastic journalists, they are very broad skills, and audiences really engage with those people. And that is why they are so brilliant at their jobs, and they are brilliant at their jobs. Many of us are flexible. I've been fortunate enough in my career at the BBC to not only do the main reporting job of being economics editor and before that business editor, but also to do some presenting, to do some radio documentaries, and to be able to do different things. And it's for our presenters and for our journalists, it is a way of audiences engaging with people in different ways. And I think if you did have, Ian, I think I get you right, that you sort of have news, which would be this rather dehumanized thing over there, which is very, very different in tone and feel to the rest of the BBC. I think we would lose something. I think it's really important. We're human beings. What has this year told us, if it's told us anything, is that we are all human beings, and we all have different things going on in our lives, and we're all people. And I wouldn't want to divorce BBC News and Current Affairs from the rest of the BBC. We are one BBC. You pay the license fee to get that full, glorious, creative service, everything from news to Strictly Come Dancing. And that is the great creative energy of what the BBC is. And I think we gain hugely from having that real ecology. I speak a lot to colleagues in BBC Content, so Content who run obviously all of our main channels and now oversee radio as well. Those conversations are incredibly rich because David Attenborough, his natural history documentaries, or the work he does for Content, and obviously now frankly for many other platforms as well, that's not done by news, the documentaries, but he is engaging on climate change, on an issue that has a huge news element. And it's really important that we have that engagement across different genres, as we would call them, to make that notion that news doesn't sit on its own. It's part of who we are. It's part of a good society, and I think we gain much more from that than having a division, if I'm hearing you rightly, between the notional creative side and the sort of the news side.
I was just floating the idea and having my own musings on how can we combat this challenge, which is there for all the media in this country, of avoiding of gaining that trust in what we do. Is do we separate the arts and entertainment completely from the news? And if you remember with the debate when Rupert Murdoch was looking to take over all of B Sky B, there was a promise there from him that the news would be completely separated. Not, I think, because the arts was going to possibly infect the news, but because there was a fear that it would need to be separated completely from interference. Just picking you up on that, or talking to you further on that, with the personalities involved in the BBC, and the BBC, without doubt, even before we went into the COVID crisis, has been making the news quite a lot, whether it be staff pay, stars pay, license fee, whether it should be decriminalised. It's become part of the national debate that's there. Does your heart sink? How difficult is it for you in BBC News to actually report on the BBC?
I think we're very good at it. I think the BBC, one thing I want to say, Ian, BBC News is wholly separate in terms of its reporting and what it does from the rest of the BBC. And we have to approach all those subjects with due impartiality. What is amazing about the BBC is that BBC News reports as robustly on any BBC controversy as we would on anything in a world outside the BBC. Sometimes some people say more robustly. And that's a great advantage of BBC News. So I can genuinely say it does not matter what my opinion is on pay of some of our leading stars, on the over 75s, the license fee, because BBC News rigorously is impartial on these issues. And as soon as we are not, we will lose the trust of our audiences. And so although I don't agree that we shouldn't be all in the same organization, I absolutely, Ian, agree with you that there needs to be an absolute separation of what you might describe as church and state. And what's been interesting, Ian, now I'm on Newsgroup board, is that when we do have controversies within BBC News, of course, we have those, as you say, sometimes leapt on with glee by some of the media. When we do have those, I've got to withdraw myself wholly from any editorial decision making made by the teams, and that's really important. And so we have a system where, you know, I remove myself from any discussion about how we are doing stories, and that's really vital. And it's a really interesting and important part of our governance that happens. So there's the broader BBC point, where BBC News is wholly independent from having me or any others having any opinions on those issues in terms of what BBC News does. And then within BBC News, when a controversy blows up about BBC News, I, of course, or any colleagues who are involved in the controversy, we withdraw ourselves, and we are withdrawn from any editorial discussions. And that's I think, the great advantage of the way the BBC operates.
Picking up on what you said beforehand about the BBC seeking a wider audience and enabling the audience also to actually people to tell their own stories in a different way to ensure that broader reach that's there. How do you physically go about doing that? Who do you choose to go to, and how do you choose these people? Because of the fear of the critic, excuse me, your critics might be, well, you'll choose the same people because the people who are choosing them are the same. How do you reach out to that audience that you believe that you weren't in touch with when there were, if I can put it, and please shoot me down in flames, the BBC was surprised by the result of the election, by Brexit and other things?
It's a really important point. So we do it by us. We have to engage with audiences differently. So I, 3 weeks ago, attended a Zoom focus group with young Black and South Asian people from Bristol. And we didn't do it, audiences did it for us. They did a focus group for BBC News and Nations and Regions. We work very closely with Nations and Regions across the UK. And they did all the questioning, and it was actually a conversation with this group of people just talking about what was important in their lives. And just as you say, Ian, what is important is that we don't do all the choosing. And we listened to that conversation, and out of that, we had a conversation about the types of things that had been raised in that discussion. They didn't know we were just listening in. The journalists were listening in. It was our audiences who were handling the conversation. And we took from that, what were they interested in, their passions for Bristol, their annoyance at the local traffic network, I think came up a few times. Their discussions about what had happened with the Colston statue and Black Lives Matter and those type of issues. We listen, we think about, we look at audience research. So we have that qualitative work with a focus group, but that doesn't drive the journey. We don't just say, right, that's what they said, we better go and cover it. That clearly is not how we're going to do this. We look at the quantitative work around what that focus group has been talking about. We use our professional, abilities as journalists, hopefully reasonably good at our jobs, and we make some decisions on how we can then reflect on that and cover the news that is useful to them. We're going to do very similar groups in very different areas, which could be a coastal town, which is doesn't have very much diversity, but we want to listen to what they think and what is that about, and what is their lives about. And so it's about pushing ourselves to listen to all those different audiences, because there has been a criticism of the BBC that somehow some people think we're a certain type or metropolitan elite. I've heard, as our chairman said in a speech just the other day, depending on who you ask, depends on which way how much they think the BBC is biased in different ways. Sometimes some people think, younger people, David Clementi said, think that we're biased towards the government. We're too fair to the government. If you talk to some older people, they may think we're all sort of metropolitan, Islington person or whatever it might be. And so by listening to the audiences, by thinking about what it is that they think is important, by looking at our research, by using our professional judgment about what matters, we can show that we can serve audiences in Bristol, audiences in a rural coastal town that would have voted very differently in the referendum or the election, maybe. And we've got to push ourselves on that. And that's a big piece of work that we've been doing in the BBC, which is, as you say, Ian, if we don't get diversity and inclusion right within the BBC, we can't reflect all audiences. But also impartiality is about listening to audiences and thinking about what it is they are saying to us and being quite deliberate about that. You have to have a deliberative process that allows you to think about what are the audiences talking about, what do they want to know about. Of course, you can do a lot of social listening. There are a lot of digital tools we can now use, but that's not the whole picture. The whole picture is real people talking and audiences giving us a proper mix: socioeconomic background, diversity, nations and regions out of London. We're going to push ourselves on all those things.
It's very, very interesting what you said, and the example of Bristol is very interesting there. And of course, when Tim Davie touched on this, he said this is not just an obsession with youth, which I could read as being, well, it's an obsession with youth, but it's an obsession with others as well. But we've still got this obsession with youth, and we hear this, that phrase, that the BBC is challenged that it doesn't have a younger audience. And I will put my hands up here. I have two daughters who are in their 20s, and they do not watch the BBC. I tell them they're missing out on things. I tell a lie. One of them watches Strictly. The others not at all. And sort of what would draw them in. And yes, I get the answer. We don't make it. It's not really relevant to our lives. We're watching other programs elsewhere with those kind of things. Is there not the challenge for the BBC is actually going to set up another challenge, that to get that younger audience, we know that the famous saying that was misquoted to Churchill with, if a man is not a socialist by the time he's 20, he has no heart. And if he's not a conservative by the time he's 40, he has no brains. So to get that younger audience, and we know what the voting patterns were at the last general election and the one before, that's skewed something like 5 times as many elderly people voted for the Tories as voted for Labour, and in the obviously that significant 18 to 25 group, it was something like only 20% or less than that actually voted for Tories, that if you go to target a younger age group, you're going to have to go for news that will attract them, which is a more of a left-leaning, shall I say, and that butts up against older viewers, shall we say, well, more right-leaning, you will just simply think, oh, here goes the BBC again. A, they're not interested in us because of our demographic, we're not young and hip and trendy, and also they're not interested in our politics. How are you going to square that circle?
It's not binary, Ian. We honestly don't think of the world like that. there are people who are young and vote Conservative, and there are people who are old and vote Labour. What we need to do is give a fair reflection of opinions on many, many different issues. And that is the way we approach it. And I think we have moved away from simple left-right, do I agree or disagree with this or that? People are much more mixed now in their different opinions on different matters at different times. Now, of course, younger people, lots of younger people do consume news in a very different way. And for example, they may engage with issues like mental health, mental welfare in a way that for older audiences, they may not engage in the same way. But we have lots of different ways of getting to audiences. We have lots of different programs and platforms and ways of communicating. And so you can have a sophisticated way of looking at those programs, platforms, particularly the platforms for younger audiences, of course, at the type of material that is being delivered. We always must deliver the news, but we can deliver the news in different and sophisticated ways without losing trust, authority, impartiality. But it is possible to do. So I don't think we'll ever win if we have this sort of binary split that it's old versus young or left versus right, because the BBC will never be successful if that's how we think about it. We have to think about, what do we believe is important? What is our audience data telling us about what is important to our audiences? And how do we use our journalistic skill and professional judgments to have a fair reflection of opinions, of what is happening, to make sure we serve all those audiences? But it will be through different mechanisms. We may not expect every young person to ultimately come to the 6 o'clock news, but we do know that the millions and millions of people who do come to the 6 o'clock news really rate the 6 o'clock news. So it's not an either or argument, it's an and argument.
So thank you for that. And just picking up again, thank you so much for your time, but we are running towards the end of this chat. It's been absolutely fascinating. Picking up on that, we mentioned beforehand, BBC has had don't want to be crass about this, no one's had a good crisis, but we know what we mean in that sense. You've had growing audience figures, and when Tim Davie took over, he was proud to say that the Ipsos Mori poll was showing that 60% of adults in this country come to the BBC for their news. I would say that it's probably over during the crisis and we've seen the figures that are actually there. You just outlined plans for the BBC to capture even more of an audience there. So you can understand that other areas of the media might be thinking, oh, they want the other 40%, do they? It's kind of, how healthy do you think it is, though, that there's, let's not say it's a monopoly, but it's not far off it. How healthy is it that one provider of news is so dominant?
Ian, we have such a diverse and rich ecology of news journalism in the UK. The BBC reaches a lot of people. We would like them to come. We don't want to have even more people. We would like the people who come to us, because we reach nearly everybody, to come to us more often and use us and create and get more value from us. Again, that is not to the detriment of all the great news journalism that I was so proud to work for the majority of my career in commercial media. And I'm very proud of that. And I'm certainly not in this job to somehow dominate or to dominate the news media in the UK. If you look at, I hope we give good publicity to the amount of great work that other journalists and other media organizations do. We're very clear every morning on our website, very clear every morning, the front pages, the links to those front pages. We are a partner here. We drive huge amounts of traffic towards the rest of the news media in the UK. It's really, really important. It's an important part of what we do. It's a partnership. It's not a sort of binary, either we win or sort of, you know, the rest of the media industry wins. We're all in it together. It's not that we want, as I say, it's not that we want more people. We just like the people that do value us and come to us, and we know they do, to just get a bit more from us, and we should be more valuable to them. We should give them things that they want. In the end, the audiences will decide what they want to do. They come to us in big numbers because we hope we give them a service that they trust, that they believe in, that is the right balance of investigative news, breaking news stories, explaining public information that you can believe in. They come to us for that. That's why we are successful. We, of course, it's humble, our role during COVID. We are very aware of our public service duties through this issue. This is literally people's lives. And we're very humble about that, and we realize the great responsibility we have been given. But it is, we are glad that so many people have come to us because they've seen that authority, and then they trust what it is we do. But it is in partnership with, I started off in this whole discussion with journalism can, in the UK, can say to itself, we have done our job. As you say, Ian, we can't talk about success in COVID, but we have done our job. And I'm very proud to have worked in journalism all my career, to be at the BBC now, but to be very, very aware of the great qualities and talents of the whole media industry in the UK.
Well, thank you very much. We are regrettably at the end of our chat here. If I could just ask just one question, put you on the spot, and it really nothing to do, it might be something to do with our profession or anything like that. So on a personal level, what are you looking forward to getting back to doing or going somewhere once all these restrictions are finally lifted? What have you found you've most missed in your life, thanks to all this?
Most missed in my life? Well, I suppose in my personal life, it's family, isn't it? It's family and loved ones, and be able to see your friends properly in a way that we're all together. I think in my professional life, what I've most missed is going out and meeting contacts. I feel that that's something we've got to think about as journalists. This is quite a transactional way of discussing anything. You know, Ian, much of our job is sitting over a bit of food, over a drink, over a coffee. You know, it's that journalism is human, and that's the one thing I have really missed, that ability to say, oh, should we just have a quick coffee, quick meet for breakfast, you know, and that is the stuff of journalism, because that's how you find things out. So that's the thing I'm really starting to miss, because of course our job at the moment is really, a lot of it is just about, as I say, staying, you know, just keeping the machinery going, and that's really important. And all those decisions you say are so difficult every day, the right balance between, you know, government, inquiry, the economy, health, the global aspect of all this. But I have missed that most in my career, is the contacts, because that's what really matters. To be able to reveal to be able to reveal to audiences what is really going on and what really matters, you need to have bloody good contacts, and I'm missing that.
I can only agree with you on that, absolutely. Having spent how many months now sitting in my in my hall with that kind of thing. Kamal, thank you so much for giving us so much time and for being so frank in your conversation. Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I hope that you will tell everyone who's missed this very interesting discussion that they can see it again on our website, which is societyofeditors.org. And we will be tweeting out lots of information as well about this. It'll also be available as a podcast as well. So if we ever do get back to traveling on the train and commuting, they can listen to us again on the podcast. Kamal, thank you once again. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We hope that you will tune in for more of our debates and discussions. Thank you very much.